So let us regard this headline from CNN's Van Jones. Let us regard it with bafflement. It says, the police who killed Tyre Nichols were black, but they might still have been driven by racism. Or maybe the correct way of reading that is, but they might still have been driven by racism. And I say, I read this with bafflement, but is it really baffling? Or is it totally predictable? And the more I think about it, the less surprising this headline actually is, because if we've learned anything in recent years, it's that there is no event that leftist race hustlers will not try and take advantage of, no matter how implausible, no matter how ridiculous, no matter how divorced from reality. And here's the thing, Van Jones doesn't need reality. He's got CNN. This is an article on CNN. And almost the entirety of the legacy media, of the mainstream media, has his back on this lunacy or charlatanism. I'll leave it to you to decide which, whether he's a true believer or just an opportunist, or maybe a bit of both. So here we have an event where a black man was killed by 5 black police officers. Not a single white person in sight. This has nothing to do with white people whatsoever. But even still, they're going to try and profit off it anyway. Now here's a neat trick. Here's how we try and manipulate you right off the bat. 3 decades ago, when 4 white Los Angeles police officers were videotaped beating Rodney King, the public outcry was heard around the world. And what do 4 white Los Angeles police officers 3 decades ago, what do they have to do with this story? Absolutely nothing. I mean, nothing in reality, but that's not the world that Van Jones works in. He lives in the world where you take something that has nothing to do with white people, and then you immediately tie it to a crime from decades ago that did involve white people. Hey, now it's white supremacy, I guess. This is just a gross and embarrassing attempt to manipulate you right off the bat. He talks about how he got arrested then. Who cares? It has nothing to do with this story. Again, what happened to King was horrifying. Okay, 3 decades ago, completely different story. We know why you're doing this. It's a desperate and cynical attempt to manipulate your audience. But here we get to, I guess, what's supposed to be his point. Black people are not immune to anti-black messages. One of the sad facts about anti-black racism is that black people ourselves are not immune to its pernicious effects. Society's message that black people are inferior, unworthy, and dangerous is pervasive. Society's message. Really? That's the message that we're seeing in society? Because I don't see that message at all. Where exactly is this message being spread? This pervasive message? Because as far as I can tell, anybody who would express just an atom of that publicly would have their life destroyed immediately. This is one of those things that people like Van Jones just say. They just say it, and of course, hey, CNN pays him to say this, so he can just go ahead. He doesn't have to be embarrassed or feel any shame for blatantly lying, because this statement is a blatant lie. It's not that, some people are good people, some people are bad people. It just kind of depends. It can't possibly be that maybe they're just bad guys, right? No, it had to be something else. It had to be, oh, you know what it had to be? White supremacy. But, I did notice this. It says, cops charged with murder of Tyre Nichols hired after job requirements lowered. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? I hope it's not more of the old WS. It says a LinkedIn post by law enforcement official Karan Parmar claimed that sources inside the department said that the officers were not hired through the normal process that the department has implemented. Quote, according to a source within the Memphis PD, the 5 charged officers weren't hired through the usual structured police department hiring process. City leaders felt the existing process was too strict and kept certain people from getting jobs at the department. City leaders began their own hiring process and then pushed new hires into the agency, bypassing the testing procedures in place at the department. You can read between the lines what this all means. All 5 of the charged officers were hired by the city and didn't go through the rigorous PD testing process. This is what quota hiring looks like. Lawsuits and dead innocents. The city should pay the lawsuits instead of the police department. This murder wasn't created by old school policing or white supremacy. This murder was directly facilitated by liberal policy. So what this is saying is that the city was hiring based on quotas, not on qualifications. So is diversity hiring white supremacy now too? I don't know. It's hard to keep up. We do, after all, live in a world of such moral confusion that if you believe, as I do, that the only ethical way to treat another human being is as an individual, that gets you labeled far right. Somehow. And look at this from Jamel Hill. She has to get on every race hustle, doesn't she? She says, I need so many people to understand this regarding Tyre Nichols. Several of the police officers who murdered Freddie Gray were black. The entire system of policing is based on white supremacist violence. We see people under the boot of oppression carry its water all the time. What does that even mean? Seriously, what does that mean? How does what happened to Tyre Nichols uphold white supremacy? Exactly. Is it just that laws are racist? Is that it? Is it just that law enforcement is racist? Or are just laws themselves racist? What can she possibly mean? Is it all laws? Which laws? I mean, perhaps there should be no laws then, huh? And then you wouldn't have any need for law enforcement, right? Or is it just that every institution is ideologically captured now? Ideologically captured by an anti-capitalist ideology, a Marxist ideology. You know, that the people that are animating modern leftism, really what they really want to do is get rid of capitalism and replace it with some sort of socialism, central planning, some kind of Marxist utopian nonsense. And the far leftists haven't been very successful at getting rid of capitalism in the West. So maybe the idea is just burn down society and then build up your authoritarian socialist utopia on top of the ashes. Or maybe it's just that race hustlers need to race hustle. That's how they make their living after all. And you know, every institution has been captured by now and will have their back no matter how ridiculous the things they say are. And so they can continue saying these embarrassing, ahistorical things without for a moment feeling an atom of embarrassment or shame. At least as long as the checks keep coming. Please subscribe, like, and share. Sharing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.